49ers quarterback Colin Kaepernick says he did the right thing when he sat out the national anthem ahead of his team's preseason game on Friday. You can see him sitting on the sidelines Friday night before his team faced the Green Bay Packers.
Now, this set off a heated debate online and among his fellow players. Kaepernick, who is biracial, says he wants to bring awareness to issues of race and policing in the country. Here's how he responded to critics on Sunday.
I'll continue to sit. I'm going to continue to stand with the people that are being oppressed. To me, this is something that has to change. And when there's significant change, and I feel like that flag represents what it's supposed to represent, and this country is representing people the way that it's supposed to, I'll stand. This stand wasn't for me. This stand wasn't because I feel like I'm being put down in any kind of way. This is because I'm seeing things happen to people that don't have a voice, people that don't have a platform to talk and have their voices heard and affect change. So I'm in a position where I can do that, and I'm going to do that for people that can't.
Dr. Todd Boyd is a professor in the School of Cinematic Arts at USC and an expert on race in professional sports. He's with us from Los Angeles. Dr. Boyd, what did you make of Kaepernick's protest and his comments about it on Sunday?
Well, I think the protest is interesting because, basically the guy sat on the bench during the, national anthem, which is a relatively passive act. But the response to it has been quite strong. I think it's an indication that we live in a time when athletes are no longer comfortable being seen and not heard. He wanted to make a political statement. He did. And then there's been a huge response, some in favor, many others against. I think his explanation yesterday clearly indicated that this is an issue he's spent some time learning about, and his reaction, in sitting out the national anthem was informed and indicated his passion and also his dedication to this particular cause. So ultimately, I think it's a good thing.
And on that point, we saw a group of NBA stars deliver a poignant speech about police violence at the beginning of the ESPY Awards this summer. Are we now seeing athletes, specifically black athletes, becoming more comfortable taking a stand on issues of race?
I think this is most certainly a new era. I think for many years, the sort of, Michael Jordan ethos loomed. There was this famous story from the early 90s when Michael Jordan supposedly said, Republicans buy sneakers also in choosing not to campaign for a guy named Harvey Gantt, who was running against Jesse Helms in North Carolina for the Senate. I think for many years, athletes assume that a political stance might influence their brand in a negative way, might impact them in a problematic way, but that seems to have changed, and this contemporary generation of athletes increasingly, certainly in very recent times, have been standing up and speaking out and taking stands that we've not seen really since the 1960s and 70s.
Dr. Boyd, as we heard there, he was doing this, he said, to raise awareness, that also he wanted to show that this is something that, quote, has to change when there's significant change, and I feel like the flag represents what it's supposed to represent. This country is representing people the way that it's supposed to. I'll stand. But to some ears, there is not a very easy way to necessarily quantify change. Change will be different for different people and depending on one's perspective. What do you think that lack of ability to very easily and tangibly measure success on that front does for the people who are viewing his protest and the reactions to his protest?
Well, he's one individual. He's not a civil rights activist. He's not a, professional politician. He's a football player. And he took an individual stand. This is obviously a problem much larger than any one person can tackle, certainly one football player. The point is he's responding to what's been going on in society. And, I think he made a personal statement and So he made a personal statement, and his justifications for that statement are going to be relative to his own understanding. But there's also, I think, a lot of other people in society now pointing out the same issues that he's speaking to. And so it's not just one individual. I think it's taking place at a much broader level.
What do you make of the resistance then? Because Kaepernick's former teammate Alex Boone said this over the weekend, quote, "He can do whatever he wants, but there's a time and a place. Show some respect." What do you make of that, and what do you make of the outrage, really, that his simple passive protest, as you describe it, has triggered?
Well, we would expect that there would be a strong response. I mean, you know, sometimes I think people are confused with this notion of freedom of speech. They assume it just means freedom of speech, but it also means freedom to respond. And so in the same way that Kaepernick can take issue with certain, you know, events taking place in society, other players in the NFL have the right to, you know, take offense to his stand. And this is, I think, an expression of free speech and democracy. Not everybody's going to agree with him. Not everybody is going to agree with the people who criticize him. I think the point, though, this sense of, you know, show some respect, this is just a way of potentially silencing, you know, critical commentary for those who attempt to go against the grain. But I think the statement is something that's so strong in many ways based on the symbolism of sitting out the national anthem that inevitably, you know, people were going to respond and many people were going to disagree with him. When Cassius Clay changed his name to Muhammad Ali, there were other boxers who refused to call him Muhammad Ali, and eventually over time that changed. So, you know, we should expect that there would be a response, and a strong response, because, you know, people take the ritual of the national anthem very seriously, but other people see it differently, and this is, I think, the position Kaepernick represents.
All right, Dr. Todd Boyd, Doctor, thank you so much.
Thank you.